Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. So on CookieCast, it's the football podcast. The guys are here, they're talking football, talking back end of the season football, unfortunately, and everything in between, which is nice. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously the biggest one, the one we like the most, is share the podcast around. If you've got a football fan in your life, send them this podcast. They will love it. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, football podcast.
Well. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, one and all, to the CookieCast football podcast week. I've got 37 written in the book, so I'm assuming it must be week 38. I might have got that right. I probably got it wrong, but it doesn't change the fact we're here to talk about football. So, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see the usual three handsome faces staring back at you. One each of a Middlesbrough, Nottingham Forest, and Hull persuasion. Mr. Cook and his extremely handsome face, sadly missing this week. But I dare say he might be back for the end of season review podcast. We can only hope. But yes, obviously no game for Hull or Middlesbrough this week, so we can't be pissed off or disappointed. Yeah, well, I suppose. But in the grand scheme of things, I suppose we can't really be disappointed. So we'll just have to leave that to Mr. Moore. Depending on the result of Nottingham Forest versus Leicester City, which we'll dive straight into now. And it didn't start the best.
Well, I think the day before, it had all kind of come up Forest. Even like earlier in the day, it had come up Forest. You know, Man City drawing with Southampton. Double whammy means that Southampton have passed Derby's lowest total in the Premier League again. I think there was some kind of, obviously a variety of kind of sorry Derby. You're sorry to get your hopes up there, Derby, but no, we've gone past it and all that kind of thing. Obviously, adding to that, Man City spitting the dummies out because a club decided not to just roll over and let them thump them for a change. Then, of course, Chelsea played earlier on Sunday, and I couldn't quite make up my mind whether I wanted them to draw or whether one of them to win. But then Newcastle won, so then that left Chelsea as kind of closer to Forest as well. But yeah, all positive going towards the City ground, and then Forest decided to concede nice and early just to for a change. Oh no, that seems to be standard recently. I mean, I'm going to admit to you, the only goal I've seen is Chris Wood's goal. I've not seen any else because I just can't bring myself to watch it. So obviously, yeah, I hear the Connor Cody was basically tapped it in after Sells had made a good save from one of their players. Apparently I listened to it on the radio, but Forest huffed and puffed, dominated the game for most of it, got back into it just before half time, I want to say. I think
25 minutes.
Ah, okay. No, mid half then. Nice diving header from Chris Wood. First goal he scored in a while. Nice cross in and diving header. Going 1-1 at half time. Come out after half time. Take the lead bright and early. You think that's it, you know, and I think it's a reoccurring theme that I make on this podcast. It goes back to when I was talking to my physio the other day. It goes back to the Cooper days of this inability to or unwillingness to just step on their throat instead of just finishing the game off. It's like, well, you know, we'll keep on going for a bit, and then we'll hit that magic 60 minute 70 mark, and whereas some clubs kind of hit that mark and then go for the win, Forest go for let's keep hold of what we got. And that was fine earlier on in the season, but it doesn't seem to be something that we can do anymore. So yeah, Gibbs White gave Forest the lead not long after half time. Again, like I said, unfortunately, I'm not seeing it, but from what I've read, like a bit of a kind of good, he cut in. Someone crossed it. He cut across the front and knocked it in at the front post. And then Forest kind of then proceeded to hope for try and cling on for the game. Did the usual. Yates comes on. All the players come on. Players come on to hold on to the game. And in the 81st minute, Leicester got the equaliser. To which then, obviously, Forest have to start again, which we all know doesn't happen. You can guarantee if you've been holding the lead for so long, you've been defending you've been playing to not lose for a certain or not concede for so long, then turning it back the other way very rarely works. Forest chucked on Awonyi for Sangare, who apparently had a really good game. It's the second good game that he's had on the bounce, Sangare. But chucked Awonyi on. And then comes the kind of like the major talking point. It's kind of like swept under the carpet, the good and the bad, or the kind of good and the disappointing of the weekend. Again, like I said, unfortunately, I've not seen it, but apparently the ball gets played through to Alanga, who's a good 10 yards offside, but we don't flag for offside because that's not the rules now. You've got to, even though it's blatantly obvious that the player is offside and has touched the ball, which makes it even worse. So he has interfered with play. So therefore, the player's stopped. They let him play on, and obviously Taiwo has gone in. I presume he's gone in to go and try and score, and has collided with the with the post with a Leicester player behind him as well. So I think there's like an element of obviously the Leicester player's momentum has forced him in. Taiwo's lay on the floor for a while, getting treatment. Apparently now obviously we'll kind of talk about this in a minute. The medical staff have said he's okay to play on. He's apparently in the process, though, he's also said that he felt okay to play on. I think that's part of the miscommunication within there he said he's okay. The medical staff have gone, okay, then we can't see anything wrong with you. It's an internal injury, so there's not going to be anything particularly obvious. To which they've left him on. They've used their third substitute to take Elliot Anderson to bring on Sosa, I think. Then, of course, Taiwo was not well enough to go on, as kind of events after are shown, but also like it became abundantly obvious in the game that he wasn't fit to go on. Obviously, they've used their third substitute, can't make another one. Therefore, he's just a passenger, and we effectively play the last 10, 11 minutes of injury time with an injured player, the injured player on the pitch still. Following that, obviously, final whistle blows, 2-2 draw. Good. The good part is that Forest have officially qualified for Europe, and I can't quite work it out, but seem pretty certain of Europa League. I think.
So this is where it gets really convoluted, because I think as it stands, Newcastle got the Conference League space by winning the League Cup, but obviously they're in the mix for getting in the top 5, which would bring with it a Champions League space.
Yeah.
So I think if that is the case, that then pushes the Conference League spot to the 7th place team.
What? Well, isn't the Conference League? Forgive me, UEFA, the shitter one of the two.
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't there already a Conference League place anyway?
No, I think they changed it so it went to the.
So they decided it was that shit that no one in the league actually wanted.
I think the upshot of it was that it basically, I think they just give the spaces to the leagues, and then they're the ones who have to decide who their representative will be.
Right. Okay.
And I think I might be making this up. I'd need to look into it more, but I think it came out that the it would go to the League Cup winner
Right.
to then free up the Europa League spaces for the FA Cup and the team that finishes
sixth
or whatever. So obviously,
Okay.
so I think there's a scenario where it can, I think, go down as far as 8th. Obviously, if Man City win the FA Cup and then finish in top 5.
Okay. And then obviously Chelsea. Well, I mean, obviously it's a kind of weird old thing because obviously they could win the Conference League, which obviously comes with a UEFA spot in it. But I assume it just gets kind of, oh, well, never mind. We don't need that anymore. Kind of given away maybe to someone else. So guaranteed Conference League. Great. Hopefully, possibly, if Man City win the FA Cup, Europa League kind of thing. So that's guaranteed. Still keeps us mathematically in the hunt for Champions League. But then when you look at the run-ins, Villa have got, I'm pretty sure Villa have got Man United and Spurs. Those two world-beating sides. My physio was like, "Oh, you never know. They might draw with Spurs and Man United." And like, luckily, I was like face down on the massage table to be like to not like just laugh in his face because I'm like, have you seen those two teams over the past season? You know, they're terrible. So I was like, right, okay, then, you know, you keep believing that one because that the evidence would suggest absolutely not. But yeah, I think Chelsea have got, and then on this Friday, I think Villa have got Spurs and Chelsea have got Man United in the kind of like obviously Forest kind of trying to keep their hopes up. So that's the good part, and I think like it's one of those things where at the start of the season, if someone said you finished in the top 6 or 7 ended up in Europe, you'd be like, yeah, brilliant, that's great. Finishing mid-table, finishing 10th I would have been chuffed with that. Like, but as I think I said to you guys, I think the worst thing is that then the vultures who've had to shut up for since Christmas, really, because like up until Christmas, like, oh, they're not going to last, they're not going to do this, and then they kind of got to like January, and then everyone thought, oh shit, we're going to look really stupid if we keep on saying that Forest aren't going to hold it out. So then they all kind of like February time were like, yeah, we definitely think Forest can qualify for Champions League. We think it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. And then, of course, they're all back out now going, told you so. And you're like, are we editing out the middle like 3 or 4 months? Then, of course, and I don't know. The cynic in me is like, is it a kind of obviously we'll kind of cover the Taiwo bit. So obviously Taiwo Awoniyi walks off at the end of the game. I assume something must have happened in the changing room / after that, to which he's then been rushed into hospital to have 2 lots of emergency surgery on his abdomen. Leading to him being he was put in a medically induced coma on Monday, for them to be able to complete these 2 operations to kind of keep him keep him alive, basically, which is way more important than football at the end of the day. However, it's also become a kind of thing of obviously at the end of the game, the owner has to do it once a season. That he came stomping onto the pitch. Now, obviously, there's some kind of well, not I don't want to say conflicting reports because obviously because everything's a instant reaction kind of thing of fucking hell, he's on the pitch again, doing shouting at people and all that kind of thing. And obviously, it's turned into actually no, he hadn't come on to shout at Nuno about them not winning. It was actually he was coming on to the pitch to shout at anybody coaches, manager, medical staff to go, well, what the hell's going on with Taiwo? Part of me's like, most of me wants to believe that's true. Part of me thinks, is it a convenient thing to cover up the fact that he came stomping onto the pitch to shout at people? Was he coming to come onto the pitch to shout at people because he was worried about the health and meant why was an injured player kept on the pitch? Either way, because to not help the team, or because he's injured and he's worried about his safety. But also, was he coming on the pitch to shout because he was pissed off that we threw away 2 points that would have got us into into the Champions League places and it a bit more under our control. And then, of course, he's managed to keep his mouth shut for most of the season about it. But old rent a quote from Old Trafford has to come in and go, oh, look at him, he's on the pitch again, it's disgrace, and it's like Nuno should.
A lot of people said that when Gary Neville was playing, to be fair. So
yeah. I mean, he's not changed. Like I said to you guys, I thought he changed as a pundit. When he first started as a pundit, I thought, oh God, can't be dealing with him because he's just an absolute knob. And on the whole, he hasn't been, but then it feels like the past 2 years, he's now turned back into. It's like he's believing his own hype. So then it's turned into, Monday Night Football is the Neville and Carragher show, and it starts off and it's all very cordial, and then somebody says something that angers the other one, and then they do their little pissed off dance, and then they all have a little shout at each other, then they have a giggle about it later, and then it's on Sky Sports for the next 2 days. And you just think, but I think I'm pretty sure if we could probably run back the exact same thing that I said around this time last year for the Liverpool game. It's a typical jingoistic, we're the keepers of the game, you shouldn't do that. In England, we do. And that's what it's turned into. What's the owner doing on the pitch again? Why is he down there? Who's he shouting at? That's embarrassing, people. Blah, 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 blah. And you think, go to most countries, you find the owner on the pitch at the end of the games, win, lose, or draw. All right, they're there shaking players' hands. They're kind of that.
It could be Turkey. The owner could go on and smack the referee one at the end of the game.
Exactly, he's not done that yet. And I just think
anyway, he's technically not the owner anymore. Remember, he's just a shareholder.
Well, then definitely shouldn't be on the pitch then, because I bet. I was going to say there's probably a load of shareholders in the crowd, but I don't think so anymore since he took full control. But there will have been at times, like when Forest were floated on the market, I think there probably was a good few thousand shareholders on the ground. So, if he would have started that, everyone could have just trotted up, shareholder, let me on the fucking pitch. I've got to work with somebody. I just think it's becoming, and I know he's the only one who does it. And I don't agree with this. Well, he could be an absent owner like the Glazers or the Kroenkes or whoever. A lot of to be fair, a lot of American sports owners are seen right at the side of the court or right next to the court. Mark Cuban, ex-Dallas Mavericks owner, is infamous for it. You see a load of the, Jerry Jones is always there. A lot of the owners are present and seen. It's not, I think the old kind of adage of, oh, look at the old little humble British businessman who owns his local club, because he ran a really successful plumbing business for 40 years. That's gone now. It's a multi-billion pound industry. So you're going to get people who are very forward facing. They're very central in it all. They're very used to being the center of attention. And, if the reason why he went onto the pitch is true from the statement that they made, good. Isn't it good that an owner wants to go and check on a player that he's concerned about? if I thought it was stupid, I'd sit here and say it's ridiculous. He needs to stay in the stand with his big telly in his nice, comfortable seats. But in this instance, I'm like, has he actually done any harm? Even if he did yell at Nuno on the middle of the pitch, our form for the past 12 games is diabolical. I'm sure they've probably had the conversation about what the hell's going on, what you're going to do to make it better. And if he's lost his temper in that moment, then does it show that maybe he is becoming more of a fan of the club than it just being an investment in the football, in Premier League? I'd rather have that than you know Jim Ratcliffe making all of his staff pay to go to UEFA Cup final. I'd rather have that than you know. Has anybody seen Todd Bowley at Chelsea recently? As he runs millions and millions and billions of pounds of debt?
Mm.
The PFI, they seems to have, whoever owns Newcastle, not seen them recently. Like there's a lot of clubs that have got a lot of owners who don't seem to exist and don't give a monkeys and will cut bait on players at the end of the season, no matter what their health status is or anything like that, just to save a quid here and there. And if he's there to look at, if he's gone out to look after the players and get some answers as to why an injured player was left on the pitch, then I'm quite happy with that. But it feels like Neville, particularly Gary Neville, has sat there all season waiting for this to happen because obviously Forest complained about him and basically said he can't come to Forest anymore, and he's basically sat there all season and thought, oh, well, I'm going to take my opportunity to give him a kicking when there's an opportunity to give him a kicking. And he would have found some way to do it in the next couple of weeks anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say it is kind of on brand for Neville, to be fair. But like you said, like it's nice to see like an owner who actually sort of does care not just about the bottom line. He actually cares about the people that are actually involved with the club on the playing side of things and stuff like that. So, just for admin purposes, I will tie up the old predictions that we had. Sadly, no one got any points for the result as we all had Forest wins, so no points there. So it's all down to goal scorers at this particular point. Only Stu and Matt had a Leicester goal, so there's no points for Ndidi or Vardy, unfortunately. So myself and Andy are going for a 2-0 win. I went with Milinkovic and Wood to score, so I get a point. Andy went with Ilanga and Wood, so gets himself a point. Matt had gone 3-1 with Wood, Ilanga and Awonyi. Not ideal. Mr. Awonyi making more contact with the post in the back of the net, which would have saved him an awful lot of pain. Stu also went 3-1. Also had Ilanga, but had Wood and Gibbs White. So bagged himself 2 points and the win for this week. Very well done, sir.
What a week. City haven't lost, and I get 2 points to win the predictions. It's almost like the football podcast is coming. Everything's coming up Stu just now.
It could certainly be better.
Well, we could have not finished looking fourth bottom, but
Don't know what you're talking about, mate. So that's week 37, done and dusted. We will take a very small break before we come back. Might touch on the Awonyi situation very slightly again before we dive into week 38's one and only game, which is West Ham United versus Nottingham Forest. Our predictions for that will be coming right at you just after this. Break over. Welcome back. So yeah, as we said before the break, I felt we should probably come back to it a little bit because the Awonyi situation is obviously it's a bit, it's not unprecedented because obviously people have got injured before and stuff like this, but it does bring sort of a bit of a highlight to when a decision is that clear cut and is that blatant that the people involved were quite clearly offside. why are we not using a bit of common sense and just flagging it as early as we can?
The stupid thing is that I think the linesman, I'm not sure if he had flagged it or the fact that he was offside had been acknowledged, but they let play go on anyway. I think like I think I'd read somewhere someone had said it's basically been an accident waiting to happen for the past 2 seasons. Has this rule been in? I don't know how long it's been in, but it's been basically an accident waiting to happen. You've seen it a few times where players have gone through and either gone in on the keeper because the flag hasn't been pulled, or another player's come and hacked them down. And it's the usual kind of thing of like it's almost like school kind of rules of someone's pissed off that you're offside, so they go and hack you down because you're offside, so they're annoyed about it. And it's just this kind of like, oh yeah, he was offside, by the way. And you're like, pointless, absolutely pointless. Like,
and that's what it boils down to. It's the case of, and it's always like when these things happen, it's always usually like it almost like works the opposite way. It's normally like a defender that's absolutely busting a bollock to try and get back in and like sort of like do a last ditch tackle. And it's like normally they're sort of like, because they've had to throw absolutely everything into it, and they normally like pull like a hamstring or something like that. And obviously like this one's a bit unprecedented because obviously it's resulted in a guy having to have like emergency surgery, which is horrendous and stuff like that. But I think it does need to be that they need to like. I get that for the marginal ones, that's absolutely fine, because then like take the decision out of the lands people's hands and stuff like that, and that makes more sense when you've got the semi-automated system as well. But on another thing, surely there should be something where they can just like send a signal through it and watch that the refs have got his hand. If the semi-automated pinged where it said it's come through that it's not even close, just blow the play. Just like I was going to say, blow the play dead. It's not the NFL.
But I think like someone had said, oh well, the semi-automated system hadn't gone off, and someone had turned around and gone, yeah, because he was 10 yards offside when he touched the ball, and like.
Probably haven't caught up with him.
The semi-automated system is there for on the line decisions, not 10 fucking yards offside.
That's the equivalent of the goal line technology going off as the ball sails into row Z, isn't it? Like, do you know?
Yeah. It's like, I mean, basically, what's happened there is the semi-automated system's gone. What, a linesman can't make that decision for you? Oh, okay, all right. Like it's time for the robots to completely take over now. It's stupid. It was an accident waiting to happen, and it's happened, and it's unfortunate that it's happened to, again, a player that's been so unlucky with injuries, and it's just, and like, obviously his season started late because of this on like kind of slight hamstring kind. He's just, the problem is this season he's never got up to speed from last season, but then once he's finally got chances, FA Cup game has his nose smashed across his face, and then just kind of recovers from that to then obviously as he's starting to look like he's, I think like from what I'd said, from what I've heard, he was looking kind of lively the past couple of games that he's come on, and he's just been typical Taiwo. Someone said, "Oh, his touch is terrible," and like, spoiler alert, that's what it was ever since he's come to the club. He's never been a gifted footballer. He's just a finisher. But and then obviously he gets a bit of a chance on Sunday to kind of do something, and then barrels into a post. It's nobody's fault, but then has some horrendous injury that, the fact that his season is over is minuscule in the fact that some people
immaterial at best and stuff like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, there's this thing. I mean, and obviously it's internet rumor, but there's some kind of thing of this might just be his career done. Like it might just be that's it. Like whatever's happened to him might be that bad. You don't know what's happened. Abdominal surgery could be.
Well, Sky were reporting loosely. When they do that thing of we want to put something out of, but we're not going to commit to it. So they use the sources have said thing. That is a ruptured intestine.
And that's a a thing, a colostomy bag, and like things like that. If it's bad, if it's that bad that he has to have some of it removed or something like that, that it could result in something. And and you just think for something that 100% could be avoided.
Yes, not good. Obviously, sort of thoughts go out to Mister Awonyi, and fingers crossed we'll hope for a nice positive diagnosis off the back of this surgery and stuff like that. But yeah, him getting well is the most important thing out of that. Let's not worry about like Matt said. Let's not worry about if he's going to be ready for the start of next season. Let's just let him heal up and hopefully be just good to sort of live his life, basically. So, as we've said, the next couple of weeks are going to be minimalist. Probably the easiest way to describe it as. We're basically all Nottingham Forest fans for the next 2 weeks. So the only game we have to predict is the final away game for Nottingham Forest for the season, and they take a trip to the worst stadium in the Premier League, as voted for by anyone who has eyes.
I mean, come on, they haven't been to fucking Bournemouth then, have they? Fuck that.
Yeah, but at least
I think it's meant to be atmosphere-wise. It's shocking.
Exactly. At least that has like some sort of atmosphere to it. Whereas like at West Ham, bear in mind, so they play in East London, yeah? Or West Ham is from East London. Why haven't they buy tickets to like Dorset to basically, to be sat in the stadium to see what's on the pitch and stuff like that? You're that fucking far away. I won't be surprised if it's like, people get like, zone charges for going through the turnstiles and stuff like that.
I'm still not convinced that the atmosphere at Bournemouth you're saying is better because the cheering you can hear is when people get to leave.
Well, yeah, but you get a lovely day out by the beach. As long as it's not too windy. Obviously,
they cheer when they don't get taken out by a piece of roofing.
if it's windy, just don't bother. Simple as that. But yes, unfortunately, the London Stadium doesn't do well, shall we say, on the polls for popular stadiums. So, yes, good luck to all those Forest fans that are taking a trip down to London for the weekend. Interesting. Didn't realise that I'd seen that this game was being played on the Sunday. Thought, that's strange. Forest's last 3 games will be played on a Sunday. Completely missed the fact that it's the FA Cup final on Saturday. There are no Premier League games on Saturday, so they're having to play all the games across Friday. I'm assuming it's Friday and Sunday. I don't know if there's any Monday games scheduled in, as that would some teams would probably throw their toys out and say, "It's not fair. We've only got 6 days to prepare for the last game of the season." Who cares? There is a Monday game. It's Brighton versus Liverpool. But there's also a Tuesday game. Bloody hell! Is there a day there's not games? Christ.
Wednesday's the Europa League final, isn't
it? Correct. Yeah, so, bloody hell, Palace, Wolves, Man City and Bournemouth, they're going to be really pissed off. They've only got 5 days to get prepared for the last game of the season.
Oh, they should the FA Cup final, should they?
Yeah, stupid wankers. But yes, we'll cover them as and when they need to be covered. But yes, West Ham United versus Nottingham Forest. I do have Mr. Andrew Cook's prediction in the book. So I'll start us off with that, and obviously Matt will give his prediction last as it's his team. So Andy has gone with a 2-0 away win. He's gone for a goal each for Wood and Gibbs White. I'm not as confident in this one. I've gone for a 2-2 draw. Yeah. Bowen, and obviously the old boy rule is in effect. And because he barely got game time there, I've gone for Ward-Prowse to score for West Ham. And then I've gone for Wood and Ilanga to get the 2 Forest goals. Stu.
0-1 Wood. Route
1. May I suggest bold call not having West Ham to score a single goal, which I imagine Matt will probably back me up with.
Yeah, but it's got to change. It has to change sometime for Forest, and I think that the last, as Matt said earlier, they've not been in a great run of form. Like maybe results wise, from like I've actually been able to watch a little bit of Forest, and I don't think there's not been a game where they've played badly. It's just that, the breaks have gone the other way for a change. And I just like West Ham are one of them teams where, oh look, they're really hard. They've gone out and beaten Man United this season. Well, so has every fucker else. So that last game doesn't count for anything. Um, I don't know. I think if Forest win, it just keeps it nice and interesting as well for that last game of the season. Then against, is it Chelsea that you've got last, Matt,
Yeah,
for the
Chelsea.
basically for the keys to Europe, as it'll be billed on Sky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I'd like to see a Forest win it. I just don't think that in a position where they look like they will get a positive result. It just something's like, I don't know if they've just put all their efforts into like cup run and they've allowed that to sort of take their eyes off the league slightly.
Well, when Wood smashes in the winner and then he rips off his shirt to reveal a t-shirt underneath that's got a picture of Taiwo on it, then you'll know.
Love it. So that just leaves the man himself, the Forest fan in the room, the virtual room, that is, of course, to give us his prediction for West Ham United versus Nottingham Forest.
Yeah, I think, obviously on Sunday I was a bit tetchy when people decided to give their feedback for the end of Forest season because, always good to dig in while the flesh is, the wound is fresh. But I think I've said to people like in the past few, we've run out of steam. I think the biggest mistake that Forest made was not to buy a striker at Christmas. We should have bought a striker at Christmas. And what should have informed that was the fact that between Taiwo and Chris Wood, neither of them have played all the games that are available for them to play since they've joined Forest. And I think that's been the key thing. And our really good injury luck outside of Danilo and Sangare at the start of the season, we had a really settled side up until just after Christmas, has disappeared in the past 3 months. Aina injured, Murillo injured, different players getting suspensions at different times. I think the culmination of everything's kind of come at a time when we could have done without it. Obviously, Hudson-Odoi's out now. Who knows when he's coming back? So it's that kind of thing. Prediction-wise, we never win at West Ham. Since we've come back, since we've been back in the league, we've not won at West Ham. So I've gone for a 3-2 West Ham win. I've got Souček because I think they're letting him go, aren't they, at the end of the season? I think either Souček, one of the two, Souček or Soufal, but I've probably picked the wrong one. But Souček, he seems to pop up with goals on a regular basis. I've also gone for old boy rule with Ward-Prowse. I've also got Jared Bowen to score. And then I've gone for Chris Wood and I didn't write anything down. I'm going to go with Elliot Anderson to score as well. It's either him or Dominguez. I'll watch Dominguez score.
That's so weird because when I was putting my picks together, I almost went with Dominguez, and I have no idea why.
No, that boy, he very struggles a lot to finish. He's like Mateta before we slagged him off levels of not being able to finish.
In which case, then, shit, rubbish, absolute terrible.
Get your house on him, basically. One thing I had missed that I didn't cover was the fact this is one of the games that's on TV.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, this is the 2:15 game that's been picked for TV. Something that I'd also sort of skipped over is it's Everton's last game at Goodison Park this coming weekend against Southampton, and that one's been moved to 12 p.m. I believe that one will be on TNT Sport. So I imagine they'll have coverage starting at about 3 a.m. for the people that are arriving at the ground. It'll go on to about 6 o'clock at night.
Maybe should go and position every single camera behind the various posts that are around the ground that restrict the view.
I definitely thought for a second there you were going to say maybe they should put extra cameras in just to see if anyone tries to steal any of the chairs or
Oh, that's
something like
100%
that.
going to happen. I mean,
The-
there's no point in putting cameras out for that because you'd just be able to go and stand outside as they blatantly carry them out.
that's possibly why they've moved the game to ensure that half the crowd still have a chance to go out on the rob of the evening. So
They'll be there with the spanners just there, just working on the seat as they go through the game, just to walk out with it, kind of thing. They're just not gonna.
I was about to say, if you listen carefully, you can hear the viewers and watching sort of numbers just going through the floor on the greater Merseyside area. But let's be honest, this podcast has never been shy in its opinion of the red half of
I was going to say
Merseyside.
the red half, but then again, as who was it? I think I saw something, a clip of Tony Bellew saying something like talking about Liverpool fans, and he said if you shut all the ports, all the airports, and all the roads, Anfield will be empty every weekend. So
He has got a point, to be fair. But yes, so there you have it. So we've got a nice even split across there. We've got a couple of Forest wins. We've got a West Ham win. We've got a draw. So basically, the upshot of that is someone is guaranteed points. So we're not going to have a nil
you watch Game
situation
of
like that.
Thrones, that'll be it.
I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to members of this podcast, isn't it? So there you have it. That is the one and only game predicted for the week. I believe Mr. Woodmansey has a whole update of sorts to bring us.
Yeah, there's a few little bits, random bits of news coming out. Weirdly, I'm already sick to the back teeth of the local rag being like, "Ooh, the season's finished now, so this player might be leaving and that player might be leaving," and like, they need to finalise the list by the weekend and blah blah blah. It's like, yes, that's the same every season. It's almost like you've got nothing else to write about. However, um, apparently on Monday this past week, a meeting was called in Istanbul with Ajun and his associates to discuss the season past, give it a bit of a review, and to make a decision on the managerial position, whether or not Sayers is going to get to keep his job. Because the understanding is seemingly floating around that that decision needs to be made sooner rather than later, so that people can settle either way, I guess, is the answer to that. There'll be a lot of movement throughout the summer, I would suggest, because again, the wage bill will be massively high for the shit that they turned out last season. They've obviously signed Puerta because of his the clause in his contract. Spent around 3 million on him. I'd quite happily keep him, but there's reports saying that they may need to move him on because of his wages. It's looking like Pedro's going to leave. Alzate, despite having a year left on his contract, is apparently garnering interest from Valencia and Getafe, so he might be on his trip to Spain. So yeah, there's a few little bits floating around, but they've got to get this managerial thing sorted out first, surely. Because at least if the players want to stay because they have an affinity with the manager, then that'll have a bearing on their decision. Or quite possibly the flip side, if they think he's an absolute knob, they might want to leave quicker. Who knows? In terms of, is it harsh that they're even discussing whether he gets to keep his job or not? Well, put it this way, like, he was brought in to keep us up. He did, by like the skin of the teeth kind of element of that. But since his arrival in November, Hull conceded 26 goals, which is the fourth best defence in the Championship in that period. The only teams that were better were Leeds, Burnley, and Sheffield United. And I mean, the fuck did they do this year?
Well, God, didn't we have to hear about how well Burnley had been, how good Burnley's defense were constantly on Sky Sports. Every second they got to talk about, oh well, yeah, Burnley, they haven't conceded in this many games, or
Well, but on the flip side of that, though, City were the lowest scorers in the league. And as much as your defence might be great, you're never going to get 3 points if you can't score goals. So um,
I was going to say
I'm
your striker not couldn't hit a barn door. He just keep on running past it all the time.
Kyle Joseph.
Yeah,
He,
just running in front of it. Oh, the barn door. There's a barn door. Oh no, barn door.
I think it was a big scary barn door as well because every time he got that close, he just shit himself. Um, but having said that,
Yeah.
um, I'm I'm not too fussed if he does go personally. I just hope that the owner has learnt his lesson in the sense of we had that big speech last year about how Rossini left and he wanted more attacking football. Well, he's brought in two managers this season that haven't garnered attacking football. I've been well documented on this podcast. The first of which was just intent on destroying players' careers, and the second of which was really just playing the hand he was dealt in the respect of try and keep us in the division with this absolute threadbare squad that you've inherited. We'll try and get you some more players in January. Oh, what's that? They're all injured too. Cracking. Um, so yeah, but again, I'm not. If he goes, I'm not too fussed. But I am very much on board with the whole. Let's get it sorted out this week so people start to know what's what. Um, the Some of the other stuff that's been announced this week. There was the uh, changes to the transfer window. So this isn't obviously just a whole thing. This is across the Premier League and the EFL. Um, the transfer window is going to be open from the 1st of June to the 10th of June. Then it's going to close for a little bit. And it's going to reopen again on the 16th of June until all the way through to the 1st of September at 7 p.m. The little break in the middle is due to the World Cup, not the England and Scotland and well, if they qualify, international World Cup. It is the Club World Cup, obviously this year. I
I think
presume that's
they opened it so that so those clubs could buy some players before they go,
yeah.
and then shut it again for a bit, and then open it again a little bit later.
Presume as well that's with a view so that any players that are potentially going to move that play for the clubs involved won't have their heads turned whilst they're at the tournament, which is absolute rubbish because it happens all of the time. But yeah, that will that affects everybody's team, even though none of the teams are really. I'm sure, like the teams at the bottom of League Two are going to be really bothered by that transfer window. And I suggest in those 10 days they may go for like the scouting people may go for a little holiday.
I suspect my team might be affected if we don't get into Champions League with people leaving.
Yeah, true. So there was that. But sorry, going back to the whole stuff. Last thing, really, from me on a football note was that it's been announced today in the local news again that the monthly membership, so season tickets, are going up at Hull. Not a huge surprise because they have been really, really cheap for the last since Adrian took over. That's the one thing that they have got right. Um, was a little bit miffed to read this in the local news as a season ticket holder on the basis of I've not had a letter or an email. Seems a strange way of doing it. However, when I read what they were going up by, it kind of dissipated quickly as it's £2 a month.
Ooh.
Um,
You're
it
gonna
works out.
have to pay for those.
It works out now that the most expensive seats in the stadium, if you attend every game, works out at £22 a game.
That's good.
So still very affordable football at Hull, but based on again what we've seen this season, I mean, I'd have took my £2 back if I could at times.
So just to clarify, did you say that's the most expensive or the most affordable?
So the most expensive seat in the ground, if you remember, works out at £22 per game.
So just to clarify, there were single game seats. Now, granted, obviously you do get a discount if you're a season ticket holder at the Borough. But there were single game seats last season where they were asking for £38 for that particular ticket.
Yep.
That is ridiculous. So Borough could definitely do with implementing some sort of changes to their ticketing pricing and structure. And I believe that would certainly help with, I mean, considering the fact that the majority of the fans that live in the area are probably on the bones of their arse, as Middlesbrough is one of the most sort of, deprived areas of the UK. I've got a little bit of Middlesbrough news to bruise, in that the club has formally submitted. Let me find the official phrase. The club have formally notified the FA of its intention to change crest from the beginning of the 2026-2027 season in line with celebrations of its 150th anniversary. So, I don't know if it's a case. I don't know if this is like a precedent that's been set from the previous Hull manager trying to change the name of the club. So I don't know if it's a case of off the back of all that, you now have to almost go to the FA and notify them of any changes you're making to, like, the club crest and stuff like that.
It might not be to do with the whole thing. It might just because of that time that Leeds tried to change theirs to the Photoshop badge.
Oh God, that was so good, so funny.
But I think it's like Man City. Man City have changed their crest numerous times, and they flip between the kind of more traditional one, as you might say, or then switching to the one that you'd associate with them in like the 90s and early 2000s, and then they switch back again, and stuff like that. There's a few clubs doing that.
There's also the thing as well of like there's a lot of clubs that have done like the third shirt stuff, and where they basically used to have like a scaled back version of the badge and stuff like that. So I don't know, but yeah, there's been a survey done by more than 21,000 Borough fans that to sort of ask their opinions on what they want as the badge. There were some numbers that said something about 60-something%. Oh, YouGov's research found that 57% of supporters are in favour of a change to the crest, 19% were against. That leaves a lot of people that would just don't give a shit. I've lost. Oh, there we go. Indicated favour for a round crest, and the most important elements to be represented in order should be the club's original founding year of 1876, a lion rampant, and a red and white colour scheme. So the full name of Middlesbrough Football Club was indicated to be preferred to Middlesbrough FC or MFC.
So they're basically going to go back to like the mid-2000s one
then. I guess so. I don't know. I might be in the minority. I might be in the minority, but I clearly am. There's 50-something%. But I much prefer the sort of the shield crest they've got now, as opposed to the circular ones they used to have.
Yeah.
But I'll wait till we see it. It'll probably come out. It'll probably be like after extensive research, it's this, and everyone's just be like, "Well, that is fucking awful." So can we maybe not go with that one?
Must be a northeast thing this year because Newcastle are changing their badge as well, aren't they?
I don't think that's gone down particularly well with the unusually quiet Newcastle fans, because they normally never voice their opinion on anything, do they?
Or overreact at all.
Yeah.
You might get the hat trick yet. You might get the Sunderland badge changed as well because they'll just have it written small underneath playoff finalists 24-25.
At this point, I think the season just needs to end as soon as possible, because this could go down as an all-time sort of like bottom 5 season of all time. Because we've got Newcastle won a trophy, Liverpool won the top division, Leeds won the second division, and there's a chance that Sunderland might get promoted. I mean, just kick a man whilst his team is shit. I mean, oh, Jesus Christ. Yes. Side note, congratulations to both Sunderland and Sheffield United for making the Championship playoff final. One of those will, of course, join the hoi polloi of the Premier League. The other will have to suffer the ignominy of taking 6 points off the Borough next season. So, yeah, thanks. That's all I've got. Unless anyone's got anything else they want to bring to the table, I'll finish it there.
No.
Marvellous. In that case, the first thanks obviously goes to these two gentlemen for joining me to go through the details of their team and their predictions. And then, of course, thank you to you, the listeners, the viewers. Thank you for coming back on a constant basis. We'll be back next week where we'll go through that West Ham Forest game. We'll look forward to the final game of the season where Forest will take on Chelsea, which could be not winner take all, but it could be winner gets the slightly better European competition than the other game, which is always nice. So yes, there you have it. Thank you very much for tuning in. Tune in next week where we'll have some more for you. But until then, thank you very much and happy bye for now.
So there we go, what do you think of that? Another one done, another one gone. Big thank you for watching, big thank you for listening, big thank you for being here. If it's your first time, give the old like, subscribe, all those buttons that we like to press. Give them all a little press. That way you get updated with new episodes, new podcasts to listen to, new videos, all of the good stuff. Share the podcast around if you enjoyed it. Maybe somebody else will enjoy it. So share it around. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Loads of places will let you leave reviews. Drop a little review if you've got a few minutes. And check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we have social media links and an email button. And that way you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye. And I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to these grumpy old men talk about football. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share and subscribe.